that.
Yeah.
And Amanda, as you know, did one class previously last year, and she's back, and she's more excited than she was before, I think.
Yeah, I am. Well, because we're about to start gardening, so.
Exactly. It was like the perfect time of year to have a class about gardening. So I just want to welcome all of you and make sure that you put your name in for the free gifts, because we do have some really good drawing gifts to give away today.
Yeah, we got quite a few of them too. I think we're up over 40, maybe even approaching 50, so.
So make sure. And also, I think Amanda will tell you more, but everybody will go home with a free gift.
Yeah, that table over there is set for, everybody's gonna get one of those.
So nobody goes home empty-handed.
This is off?
Amanda, did you also want to explain about the thumb drive?
Yes, and there'll also be a thumb drive with this presentation on, attached to that. And let me show you what you're actually gonna get. Okay. Let me show you what you're actually gonna get. Give me one sec here. Get reattached. It's okay that my shirt's over the antenna?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we got, obviously we have a growing tray. I think it's a 40 cell with a humidity dome. We have some San Marzano tomatoes, and in most cases, there's 2 in there with a butterfly flower collection, but most of them have zinnias in here. And there's also a brick that should fill this, and you should actually have extra, of what's called cocoa core. That's a planting medium. It's an inert or it's a sterile planting medium to go with it. So this is just the basic prize that everybody will go home with. Yeah.
Thank you. We don't want anyone to feel left out.
Right. So is there anything else you want to say, Sherry?
No, I think we're ready for you to begin.
Okay. So I want to welcome everybody, and I actually see familiar faces from last time. Forgive me as I look down in my book of all the things I don't want to forget to tell you. But I have been gardening for about maybe 15 years now. I started as a little girl in my dad's garden, picking vegetables before they were ready or before he even knew, and I would be eating in his garden. I'd get in a little trouble for that, but I absolutely loved it. And I didn't realize how much of a passion I was gonna have for it when I got older. And actually, my dad passed away before he found out that I was gonna be a gardener. I kind of wish that he could have seen that, because now I have a fairly large garden. I've probably lived in a few different places. My husband and I have started probably 5 gardens together, maybe 4 or 5 gardens. And one of them was 4,000 square feet, not counting like blueberries, strawberries, raspberries. We had fruit trees, and then we'd have to move and go someplace else, or we'd choose to move and start another garden. So we've broken ground quite a few times. So this presentation will also be filmed, and it will be available on YouTube. Anything you don't get on the thumb drive, all these in-between things will be on YouTube to be able to see, and on our website. The information will be at the end of this presentation, so you'll have it on your thumb drive. In general, like we said, we have a lot of giveaways. Our grand prize is going to be a Spider Farmer LED grow light, which is this guy right here, okay? And it's quite a strong grow light. And it's the ones that I actually use at home for myself. And I love them. They do a wonderful job. So we will have about a 10-minute intermission. And at that time, we'll be drawing names for the prizes. So you want to make sure you get your name in to be drawn. And I also want to say I'm a passionate gardener, but I'm not an expert by any means. I believe that everybody can learn something new. I think an 80-year-old farmer can still learn something new down the road. And I'd also like to save the questions till the end because I got a ton of information. So let's start. So ready, set, grow. So this is what we'll cover in this class. Why do you want to grow from seed? The anatomy of a seed, deciphering seed terms and seed sources, what's on a seed packet, direct sowing versus starting inside, seed starting mix characteristics and additives, planting containers, ideal temperatures for specific crops, biggest seed starting mistakes, natural fertilizer list, tidbits that I maybe forgot or are kind of miscellaneous, and again, where to find our previous classes. And I want to start off by showing you some pictures of my husband and myself's garden, and this is my happy place. That is the entrance to my happy place. That was last year anyways, and there's always something new. But these are just some pictures of the existing garden that we have now. We have some raised beds, and we do have a portion in the back that's an in-ground garden. But this, we grow raspberries and blueberries. We have a strawberry beds now. And we've gotten quite a bit of stuff out of it, and we plan to expand. So this is some of the produce we've gotten out of our garden. Look at the size of that asparagus, huh? That's a quarter sitting on there. It was huge. Oh, I'm really echoey now.
Now you're on.
Now I'm really on. I'm pretty echoey, Jim. All right, and I even grow edible flowers too, which almost all the flowers are edible, not the zinnias. But our last strawberry harvest was wonderful. I was so happy about that. And I got to make a lot of jam this year, but just gives you an idea of, oh yeah, everybody goes crazy for this. I'm actually behind that cabbage. You can't see me. That's not my head, that's somebody else's head. And my body is that white t-shirt behind there. But I mean, it's really nice to have fresh flowers and whatnot. So why grow, this is still real loud, isn't it? A little loud? Okay. So why grow your garden from seed? You can choose the varieties you want. And there's an estimated 20,000 species of edible plants on our planet, and that's just an estimation. Only 20, just 20 of the 20,000 species are what makes up 90% of the vegetables that we eat. So that's just a small, tiny amount. Then beyond species is variety. For instance, let's talk about tomatoes. There's about 10,000 different varieties of just tomatoes alone. So think about the diversity, right? Potatoes, 5,000 different types of potatoes. Tens of thousands of different types of corn. Okay, and dry beans, 40,000 different types. So, I mean, we're used to seeing pinto beans, black beans. You know, you get a little handful of a different variety. 40,000 in the world. Can you imagine, right? So you can choose the type of seed you want. So whether you're concerned about organics or heirlooms, if you want pelleted seed, and pelleted seed is, Sherry? Pelleted seed is, and I might also mention it later in this, but pelleted seed is a clay coating over a seed that's a small seed. Like carrots, for instance, are hard to plant notoriously, right? But what they do is they take clay and they cover it so that carrots are a little bit harder to, I mean, they're very small. So it's really hard to get them spaced. And then if you get a little bit of hard rain, they move. I've planted lettuce before, and this is when I was a little less experienced. I plant the lettuce directly into the ground, which is fine. But we had a hard rainstorm and our garden was a little bit on a hill, and I had come out and not realized, I hadn't seen the garden in a little while, I had lettuce growing down my hill, you know? So it's like, there's a little trail of lettuce growing down. So let's see. Yeah, concerned about heirlooms or pelleted seed, and that's very helpful. You can space better. You can concentrate on seed that's proven to grow in your area better. Like, for instance, there's a company called Fruition that actually deals in seed that will grow well in our area. And you can also save your own seed. So, let's see. You can control the growing conditions, okay? For instance, you can decide what kind of a seed starting mix you want, what kind of a fertilizer you want to use, the timing schedule of your plants, the light and the watering conditions, and all these things add or subtract to the health of the plant in the long run. You can control your budget, okay? You can save a lot of money gardening, or you can spend a lot of money gardening. But I mean, there's so many different ways that you can trim costs. If you go to like Walmart or Home Depot, do you ever go and sometimes they've forgotten to water and everything's just drooping over and looking real sad, you know? And then they want you to pay $3 all the way up to like $8, $9, $10 for some of those larger tomato plants. It depends on what you buy. I mean, sometimes you can get a bargain. And something else you want to do, if you are going to buy plants, look for ones that have double and triple. You say you get a 6-pack, sometimes you got 2 or 3 plants in one cell. You know, that's what I look for. If I can get more, I can separate those out and it'll stretch your dollars out too. So you can save money gardening by seed. And you can also extend your growing season. You can start earlier. For instance, some of the cooler weather varieties like kale and broccoli and all that stuff, some places don't even sell that. More so now you're starting to see that, but you can actually start earlier. If you can get your fingers in the soil, you can extend your growing season by, you see these hoops here. I just took a 1-inch PVC. We bought a bunch of those. I bend them over, I stick them on either side, or you can even take a larger piece of PVC, cut it down into a chunk, pound it into the ground, and then stick your ends inside those. Then take a piece of plastic, like a 6 mil plastic, you can get that off of Amazon, and put it over and you have yourself a little mini hoop house. Really cheap and inexpensive. And you'll see in here too, or maybe you won't, maybe I already passed that, but have you ever heard of cattle panels? Anybody? They're like instant trellis. You go to Tractor Supply, they have hog panels and cattle panels. They're very heavy wired things that you can just bend and you have an instant trellis, but you also have an instant greenhouse. You put a few of those together, just get some tie wraps, tie wrap them together, put some plastic over it, and you're good to go. You have yourself like a little greenhouse, you know, but you have to watch because it can get pretty hot in there. And oftentimes at the end of the season, if you plan things right, you can have 3 to 4 crops go through your garden, like 3 to 4 crops of carrots, right? If you succession plant. And you can do that at the end of the season too. You can start growing seedlings in, say, July inside of your house and bring them out, and you can go all the way up until a killing frost. So, I mean, our growing season is 150 days, somewhere around there. Where I come from, I live about an hour and 15 minutes away from here. But here we're somewhere about 150-ish days for a growing season. But you can extend that on both sides. I mean, I'm out there as soon as the snow is cleared, like right now, after this class, I'm going. I am going, and I'm gonna start as soon as I can start sticking my fingers in the soil. And some people will say to me, you're starting too early. I've never had a problem. I watch the weather like a crazy lady, and I'm right on top of it. So there's the other thing is satisfaction. You know, you get the satisfaction of going from a seed to a plant, you're babying this thing all the way up, and then you're making salads, you're making all fresh food, and everybody knows. And I have followed somebody on YouTube, and she said, and I thought this was perfect, that store-bought tomatoes taste like disappointment. You know, they're just horrible. So there's the satisfaction of growing your own things as well. And it's a sense of accomplishment. So let's start with the anatomy of a seed. So there is the seed coat. And the seed coat is that surrounds the outside of the seed. It can be thin and soft. It can be hard and thick. It protects the embryo of the seed from physical injury and drying out. It can also be a protection from bacterial and fungal pathogens. As you can see, this is a bacteria and a fungal pathogen attacking the outside of this. Some seeds don't have to be, but help in fermenting them. And what you do is put the seed inside of a little bit of water in a warm place, and usually it's like tomatoes and cucumbers have, if you look at it, if you've ever saved your own seed, they have this membrane, a gel-like membrane on the outside, which makes it a little bit harder to germinate. You can germinate them. You'll get a little bit of spotty germination when you're saving your own seed, but if you put it in a little bit of water, and it will actually develop a little bit of mold on the top sometimes, that's okay, but it will eat away, it will ferment and eat away that outside layer of protection. So that's what you're trying to avoid, a lower germination rate, but again, you don't have to do that. There are some seeds that need to be scarified. I want to see something. All right. All right. Sorry. I just want to make sure. So scarified. Scarified is when you nick the outside of the seed coating so that water and moisture can get into it and it will be able to break out. Kind of like a little hatchling when it comes out of an egg. It's got that first opening to make it easier for the chick to come out. It's the same kind of thing with the seed. And what you do is you could take a nail file or even a pair of cutters and gently, you don't want to cut into the inner fleshy part of the seed. You just want to take away a little bit of that outer coating. Things like morning glories have a really hard outside. Sweet peas, lupin, nasturtium. Nasturtium, you can eat those too, by the way. They're a little bit spicy and nice. Even spinach seeds could benefit from scarification. All right. And then there's stratification. Some seeds need to be chilled before they are planted. And what you can do is just take and put them in a moist paper towel inside of a baggie, stick them inside of your fridge. They can be stratified for anywhere from 10 days to up to 3 months. I've had to stratify seeds up to 3 months. I just stick them inside my crisper drawer. This is for the real colder stuff. And a lot of the times it's things like blueberries, blackberries, apple trees, and purple coneflowers also need that. It's just like a fruit tree needs a chill time. I don't know if you've ever heard that. And blueberries need a chill time. So do some seeds. So let's go to the anatomy of a seed. We did the seed coat. So now we're going to head to the endosperm. Under the seed coat, it's what makes up the majority of the seed. And it's fleshy and full of nutrition. And this is what actually the plant lives off of until it's gotten its first mature leaves. Okay? And there is, it's what feeds the baby plant. And actually 2/3 of all of our calories come from endosperm as well, from grains and things like that. We eat that as well, and nuts and grains, and coconut. And then there's the embryo. And as the seed germinates, you're going to see the embryo come out. And there it is. It's got its first 2 leaves. And you get what the first 2 leaves are called the cotyledon leaves. And the cotyledon leaves also act as a nourishment source for that plant to grow. Okay? Then you have the hypocotyl, which is the stem, and the radicle, which ends up being the primary root. Okay, so deciphering seed terms and where to get good seed. So let's talk about organic seed first. A lot of people want to grow organic. Organic means you don't have to worry about certain pesticides. They do still have pesticides on organic food. I know a lot of people are under the impression that there are no pesticides. No, there are some, but they're approved by the USDA. And it's free of synthetic fertilizers per USDA regulations. It contributes to building a healthy soil, a potentially more resilient mature plant with a stronger natural pest resistance. You're also supporting a more natural farming practice that helps with health of the environment in general. So let's see. Actually, you can tell, I mean, garden food in general has a better taste. We know that, right? We just talked about tomatoes. But organic garden food actually improves beyond that. And actually it has a higher nutritional value. There were race horses before that were fed regular oats, and then the man started feeding them organic oats, and he saw a tremendous difference. And I've heard other stories like that with organic foods and the nutritional value and how much it boosts things. I'm going to go back to this one. So you'll see on organic things, it says OMRI listed, and that is Organic Materials Review Institute. And when you see OMRI on something, it's approved for organic gardening. All right. I just didn't want to leave that out. Okay, and have you heard about GMOs? You've heard the term GMO now. We're starting to see on our food in the supermarkets non-GMO. Or you can flip on the back. If you look down in the little writing, you'll also see, like Europe has everything marked, but you'll also see on the bottom bioengineered ingredients. And that's what it is. It's a genetically modified organism, which in other words means that this food has been re-engineered at the molecular level, which is a little bit scary in my thought. And this can involve transferring genetic material from an animal to a plant. So they're taking animal genetics and putting them into plants. Just something to think about. I don't know that that's an area I would really want to mess with. So scientists insert genes from an animal directly into a plant DNA to create a genetically modified organism. It doesn't even sound very appetizing, does it? Right? With a desired altered trait. It's often called molecular farming, where plants can now provide animal proteins and vice versa. So you can get animal proteins in a plant and plant proteins in an animal. They're crossing those two things. Is he looking out at you guys? So a lot of crops that are GMO heavily now are cotton, corn, soybeans, and there are a lot more. There's alfalfa, apples, canola, eggplant, papaya, pineapple, potato, squash, sugar beet, sugar cane, and a lot of those things that are in our food are genetically modified. So are non-GMO seeds organic? And all organic seeds are non-GMO, But not all non-GMO seeds are qualified as organic, as they could be produced with certain pesticides and synthetic fertilizers. So just because something says it is non-GMO does not mean it's organic. And then there are heirloom seeds, and that is one of our tomatoes that came out of our garden. Actually, that's only 1 pound, 10 ounces?
Wow.
But we've had actually almost a 2.5 pound tomato come out. And that was a brandy wine, by the way, which is our favorite slicer tomato, but it was ginormous. So heirloom varieties, which we have a tendency to lean heavier towards, is heirloom varieties. I get a lot of stuff from Baker Creek. I don't know if you've heard of that seed company.
What was it again?
Baker Creek, which I will actually have, you'll have that on the thumb drive at the end. So heirloom seed varieties have been preserved by home gardeners and farmers for generations, okay? These varieties have been cultivated over hundreds of years to have the same characteristics as the first original parent plant, okay? A big benefit of growing heirloom varieties that they're called what is called open pollinated, which gives you the ability to collect your own seed at the end of the plant's life. And you'll have something that's true seed from the parent, right? It'll be the same thing as what you planted. Another nice thing about heirloom seed is oftentimes it's accompanied by a story of how it's been preserved and managed to get into your hands. You'll hear the story about how this person's great-grandfather saved this seed, or this person developed this seed until it came into an heirloom, Charlie Brown, until it came into until it came to be an heirloom. So, and then there's hybrid seeds. They happen naturally all around us, okay? A hybrid seed is a crossing of different varieties of the same species. Say a bee travels from one squash plant to another, I see you, and transfers the pollen from one to the other. The seed that develops from that cross results as a hybrid. Okay, so say you have a couple of different squash and you got that bee going. You might have something that looks completely different than what you planted before if you save seed from that hybrid, okay? It actually may result in an improvement in the fruit. It may not. And it actually, like I said, could look different than the originals and possibly even taste better. But it's kind of cool when you do that sometimes because you don't know what you're getting and you get to try something of your own. So with that said, commercial hybrid seed can be developed for high yield, disease resistance, stress adaptability, and faster growth, not necessarily taste and nutrition, which many of us home gardeners grow for. That's really what we're growing for, is something that's a better quality food, for in most cases anyways, with higher nutrition. And then there's F1, F2, F3. I actually learned more about this. I've learned some stuff while collecting information for this class, and this is something that I learned. So you see that sometimes, F1, have you ever seen that kind of stuff? No? You can look for seed catalogs, which this is what I do in the wintertime. This is what I do. Right? This is what comes to my house every year. That's about the amount. And start pouring through those things in the winter, and it gets you excited for the upcoming gardening season. So F seeds, for example, you may have seen F1, 2, or 3 while skimming the catalogs. The F stands for filial, which basically means from son or daughter, okay? It denotes the generations after the parental generation. In other words, F1 is the first generation of a certain kind of a seed, right? From 2 different parent plants. They've merged those 2 together like a hybrid. And it's a crossing of 2 F1s gets an F2. And then a crossing of 2 F2s make an F3. And what happens is as they continue to put these 2 things together, it becomes a stable variety. so that it will become bull's blood beet or something, and it will stay that when you plant it. So you keep crossing the Fs until it's a stable breed, as I said. And can a hybrid seed be certified as organic? Because my husband and I go back and forth about hybrid seeds and organic seeds. And it helped me to learn the difference between the two. So as long as it's been grown by organic standards, it is possible to be certified organic and be a hybrid. And then there's primed seed. A primed seed is one that has been through a controlled hydration process and forces partial germination. A redrying back to its original state. It basically wakes up the germination of the seed without allowing it to root and to emerge at that time. But what it will do is when you put it in the ground, it'll come up faster. So that's a method they use for faster germination. Then I showed you the pelleted seed, which has been really good for me for lettuce and for carrots and for onions. Usually I'll go to Johnny's seed for those. They have a lot of pelleted seed. And it makes it so that when you're planting carrots, like I have a carrot bed that's probably 3 feet by 8 feet. And when you're sitting there planting these tiny little, every seed is one single carrot, right? It takes a while. And if you're planting these tiny little seeds, that color of that seed that I showed you is so close to the soil, you can't even see where you put them. And carrots are a real pain to weed, right? So this year I'm gonna try something different and I'll show you. This is something new that I haven't tried before, but somebody just did this. And I'm gonna take an egg crate. It's not recommended to plant carrots inside ahead of time, root vegetables in general, you know, because they just don't do well. Carrots especially, because they form, their taproot is what we eat. So if you've ever grown carrots, and if you've grown them in rocky soil or something like that, I've pulled carrots out and literally had them be twisted like this. One carrot turns into 3 shoots and twists around itself. It's kind of cool, but terrible to clean. So this year I'm gonna try this. I got a bunch of these things. And I'm gonna poke holes in here. I'm gonna put a tray underneath it, fill this with soil. I'm gonna start my carrots indoors, and if you know anything about carrots, they're more for an intermediate gardener. They're a little bit hard to start to germinate. They're so delicate, you can't plant them too deep. They dry out, they die quickly. You just gotta keep your eyes on them. So a lot of times people will put a tarp over them, or they'll put a board over them until a certain amount of days you keep peeking under the board.